Today we're going to do a review that encompasses both ionic and covalent compounds, naming and formula writing, Lewis structures, molecular geometry, and bond angles. So for each one of these compounds, the first step you do is identify, is it ionic or covalent? We're not going to use the electronegativity rule here, we're just going to focus on if it starts with a metal, assume it's ionic. So for this first one, it starts with a metal, so let's assume it's ionic. And we'll put an I. Cr2SO43, that's a formula, so we must need to write the name. Well, we know that Cr is chromium, and chromium is in the transition metals. It's not one of the univalents, so we're going to have to use a Roman numeral with it as well. So let's start by writing chromium and put our parentheses. So if we look at the reverse cross, we can do that. This 3 would go here, and the 2 would go here. Sulfate does in fact have a 2 charge, so that means the chromium must have a 3 charge, which would be Roman numeral 3. We can also look at it logically, that if chromium has a 2 charge, and I have 3 of them, I have a total of a 6 negative charge over here. I have 2 of these, so this must be 3 positive each to get 6 positive. That would cancel it out. Either way you think about it, chromium must have a 3 charge and therefore needs a Roman numeral 3. SO4 2- is sulfate. For the next step, it says if it is covalent, do the full Lewis structure. If it is ionic, do the Lewis structure of the polyatomic ion only. So we don't need to worry about the ionic Lewis structure here, just the Lewis structure for sulfate. So sulfate is SO4 2-. We put our least electronegative in the center, which is S. Use single bonds to put all your outside elements. O, 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 and O. Next, fill the octets of the outside elements. Octet being 8, so we need to make sure that each one of the outside ones have 8. Now I hear a lot of students tell me things like oxygen has 6. Once you start putting it all in a compound, nobody claims any of the electrons anymore. All of the electrons go in a pot, and then the most electronegatives get them first, and then the middle ones get them next. If the middle ones and the outside ones are C, N, O, P, or S, then they'll share. Otherwise, the middle guy just gets fewer electrons. So we've filled our octets. At this point, we need to stop and count all of our electrons to see if there are any more or if we've used too many. So sulfur has 6, plus I have 4 oxygens, each of which have 6, plus I have a 2 negative charge, so 2 more electrons were added to the whole pot. So plus 2 more. So that's 24 there, plus 6 is 32. So we have 32 total electrons to play with here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32. We've used up all the electrons. There are no excess to put in the center. There is no need for double bonds. Sulfur has 8 around it. Each oxygen has 8 around it. So our last step is just to represent the charge. Put brackets with the 2-. For the next column, it says if it is covalent, name the molecular geometry. If it is ionic, name the molecular geometry of the polyatomic ion only. So I'm looking at my polyatomic ion here. I have 4 areas with electrons, each of which has a bond. There are no lone pairs. So 4 bonded areas and 0 lone pairs tells me that the molecular geometry is tetrahedral. Make sure you know page 68. If you did badly on the molecular geometry quiz, today after school is your last chance to re-quiz to earn up to a 70 on that. Make sure you come to that. If you need to sign up for the tutorials bus, you can sign up over lunch. The angles for tetrahedral are 109.5 each. 109.5 degrees. So this table will help you bring together all of our concepts: naming, formula writing, identifying ionic or covalent, Lewis structures, molecular geometry, and the angles of that molecular geometry. Next, we're going to identify and separate our ionic compounds that are univalent, our ionic compounds that are multivalent, covalent compounds, and metallic compounds. First, I want you to do is summarize everything you know about the naming, the formula writing, and the fate of the electrons in each type of compound. Once you've written as much as you can about how to do the naming, how to do the formula writing, and what the electrons are doing in each of these, then I want you to sort through these compounds and write both their name and their formula under the correct category. The last thing I want you to do is to find the mistake or not. For each of these compounds, circle the ones that are correct, cross out the ones that are wrong. The ones that are wrong, I want you to correct them beside it and tell why they are wrong. Only 5 of these are correct. The rest are all incorrect. You and the person you are currently sitting with can now work together to finish up this worksheet. If the classroom gets too loud, you'll have to work independently. You need to be able to work together to help each other without being a distraction for everyone else in the class. You have a test tomorrow. Make sure you're ready for it. Make sure you finished your entire unit in your workbook and you've gone through all your study pages. Tomorrow you will turn in this worksheet and your station review as well as your workbook. If you've been keeping up with everything, the only thing you have left is to complete this worksheet. If you've fallen behind, you have a long night ahead of you. I'll see you tomorrow.